Welcome to another episode of the Fascia Masters podcast. My name is Quinn Castellane. I'm the VP of Block Therapy. We have Deanna Hansen, who is the founder of Block Therapy. And today we have a cool episode. We're talking about conditions of the heart. And of course, the heart is one of the most important organs that we need to be conscious and aware of. But let's jump right into it. So because we talk so much about fascia, hence the Fascia Masters podcast, how does fascia decompression impact heart health? How does posture impact heart health?
Well, great question. And I think what we really need to understand is, like everything in the body, we always talk about space. Every single cell has an alignment that is perfect for it to be in. And as long as there's space, there's ease of nutrients into the cell, as well as ease of transport of waste away from the cell. So if you think about this container, the rib cage, so the heart is an organ and a muscle. It's this beautiful, beautiful thing that, of course, we can survive without our brain. We cannot survive without our heart. So from the perspective of survival, the heart is the most important structure to consider. So the rib cage, of course, is the structure to support that. So what makes the rib cage so powerful is its flexibility, is the space between the ribs, so that there's an ability for us to absorb impacts and not shatter and break. So when we consider what happens when we don't have proper alignment in the body and conscious breath, we talk a lot about, of course, the diaphragm being the foundation of the rib cage. If it's not strong through conscious breathing, it becomes weak and the rib cage collapses into the core of the body. So where the position of the heart is right above the diaphragm, slightly to the left, it should be seated at the front of the rib cage. But when we sit in this collapsed, compressed alignment, what's happening is we're literally taking this organ muscle and we're squishing it. So one of the conditions of the heart is like valves that don't function properly. I mean, you take anything and you squish it, and you're not going to have the alignment of that structure working properly. So the heart is so important to understand because of its alignment, and why it's so important to make conscious breath and alignment something in the forefront of our understanding of how to be healthy. So here's the aorta, the main artery leaving the heart, right underneath that left side of those ribs. So, 70% of the people are right-handed. So typically that right-handed person is going to collapse more into that left side of the rib cage. And think of taking a straw and squeezing it and twisting it.
Kinking it.
And okay, so like even if you had a pretty good sized straw and you could maybe breathe through that straw with ease, as soon as you kink it, you're not going to be breathing very easily through that straw. So now here's this main roadway of blood and oxygen leaving the heart. And if it's kinked in any way, now the heart has to work that much harder to try to get that blood to push through this challenged space. So then that might lead to things like high blood pressure. So there's all these, impacts of simply just understanding posture. But even more importantly, when we talk about how the energy in the diaphragmatic movement creates heat to this area, we have a really cool picture. I think we can probably post the picture in this video.
Absolutely.
I love this because I've mentioned many times I live above a river. For 16 years, I've seen the river freeze and thaw through the seasons. And the pattern of it is always the same. So we're just kind of coming into that time right now. And I took a great picture because what you see as the river starts to freeze is that the ice particles first, they start to stick to the periphery, and then you can see chunks of ice flowing down the river, and they start as small chunks, and then they start accumulating in size, and eventually then there's an absolute block in that river. So when we think of things like atherosclerosis, this is when the plaque, the cholesterol, the plaques basically stick to the inner linings of the artery. So just like this river that's
just like that river.
Freeze, now the space for the flow to travel through that artery is compromised. And then as it becomes colder from even that, it becomes even colder. And then we get more and more accumulation of these fats and the debris blocking the passage for ease of flow. So essentially, in my view, pretty much anything and everything heart related really comes back down to understanding how to keep our container spacious and how to keep that diaphragm working so that we can not only maintain the space, but maintain the temperature of the optimal temperature within to keep the flow as it should be.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. Like that picture is such a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable because you can literally see it. And then when you see, let's say, a photo of inside of a vein or an artery, and you can see how it starts to accumulate to the sides, it just makes total sense. And from the analogy of the river when it starts to freeze, you literally, and hence freeze is such an important term here because it's starting to get colder. It's starting to grip to the outer portions of the veins or the arteries. And then that starts to build up. But as soon as you start applying heat, so now let's say it's springtime, that is reversing that effect.
Yeah.
So then you start seeing a solid river, but ice on top of the river starts to melt, and there's bigger chunks and smaller chunks, and then eventually proper flow. So that's essentially what we are accomplishing with a fascia decompression, proper diaphragmatic breath, and proper temperature within the body to allow those fats to become more liquefied and to actually use them to our benefit rather than them getting stuck to the linings of the walls, which is going to cause more buildup, which is going to lead to more high blood pressure and other issues with the heart and the circulatory system. So that, I just love that's like the most perfect analogy.
Well, and in a nutshell, that's all we have to talk about.
Yeah.
Because really, I mean, that picture really does say it all.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the container, it's the space, it's the heat. And that's what happens when we don't have conscious posture and breath. We fall out of alignment. Things become squished. Things don't close and open as they should. So that's what makes this such a fun conversation, because really the conversation is always the same, no matter what structure we're talking about, because that's really what it comes down to. It's cell alignment. We want to have space. As long as there's space, there's ease.
And now, so let's talk about the chaos of the fascia system, because everybody's posture is different. Sure, you said approximately 70% of people are right-handed. Yes, we can collapse more to the left side, but it's really throughout the entire body this happens, similar to varicose veins. People typically see those in the lower extremities of the legs.
Yeah.
And that's because there's less flow.
Yeah.
It's a lot colder down there because it's harder for the blood to pump all the way to the feet and then come back up to the heart. So when we have our, we'll call them signature postures or whatever habits we're doing on a daily basis, let's say we're not even moving a lot, but also there's people who have varicose veins who do move a lot. So it really comes down to the fascia system when it becomes compressed, dense, and then you have the incorrect alignments throughout our body. These adhesions develop everywhere, and then that grips onto anything in the way. Anything in the way. Bone, it can onto muscles, like arteries, nerve fibers, literally everything.
The organs, the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why we always come back to the idea you need to do fascia decompression throughout the entire body. But when we start, let's say more so in the core, it's a brilliant start because we have to get the engine warm. We got to get it hot. So we got to start, I'm not going to say hot, but we have to heat it up to that proper temperature. Make sure the organs are
we have to turn the engine on so that it can heat the cells to their proper temperature.
And when you refer to the engine, you talk about the diaphragm.
Yes.
And I love that. Would you say the heart is part of the engine, or would you say primarily when you're referring to the engine as the diaphragm?
The engine is the diaphragm. Yeah, the heart is the pump to push everything out into the body. But without the engine, I mean, the heart and the diaphragm are intimately connected, obviously, because if we stop breathing, the heart will stop. Right. So, I mean, they are kind of one and the same in that regard, but we are conscious of the diaphragmatic breath, or we at least can be, where the heart is going to, I mean, I know a lot of people can control their heart rate through meditation and through those things, but I mean, I can't sit here and say, okay, heart, I want you to do this, where I can sit here and say, okay, I'm going to take a full diaphragmatic breath, or I'm going to take a full chest breath, but I'm going to engage my diaphragm. So it's the muscle that we actually can control and how to regulate the body. Mm-hmm. So that's what is most important, because by regulating the diaphragm, we will regulate the heart. Right. We'll create that floor, because again, the heart sits right above the diaphragm, and then the aorta goes through the diaphragm. So when it's all squished and adhered in this space, now we have this most important organ really compromised. Mm-hmm. So again, if we're only sending 50% of the blood that would normally be available out through the heart because of the compression, the body's going to serve first what will keep us alive, and it will forgo the limbs. And that's why death starts in the feet. You know, we can live without our feet. We don't want to, but we can.
Yeah.
So the body's really ingenious in its way to survive, but we're also built to thrive. Yeah. And thrive means making sure that every single cell is considered as equally important as every other cell. But in the mind of the fascia, when it comes to survival, the heart is going to be the most important thing.
Right.
Because again, we can still be in bed, brain dead, but we can still have a body that's alive through the heart.
What is the medical term used when there's an accumulation of fats or the cholesterol on the linings of the veins and the arteries?
That's atherosclerosis.
Okay. So what do you think, or what is one of the main protocols that people would typically give to help improve that issue?
Like ours or?
No, just like, let's say, medical advice.
Meds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the intention of the meds are to dissolve the fats, improve blood flow? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just like,
you know what? It's
curious.
funny because I mean, like, basically it's cholesterol meds to lower cholesterol.
Right.
Because like, let's decrease the amount of fats. But here's where it gets a little convoluted, because the body needs the fats. So if you see that there's all this fat in the bloodstream, we think that there's too much cholesterol, but there's not too much cholesterol. It's the fats have become cold.
Yeah.
And then, you know, cold also holds toxins.
Yeah.
So the fats can become cold and toxic, and now they get sticky, and then they stick to the lining of the wall. So to lower cholesterol isn't a good thing in my view. It's managing the temperature so we can make sure that the fats in the body are liquid as opposed to solid.
And what you just said there is addressing the root cause of the issue rather than throwing a Band-Aid on top of the issue, which we know is not necessarily the best solution. So what are your thoughts on doing more cardiovascular exercises? So if somebody comes in with this issue, and I'm just going to say a doctor, I don't know necessarily, we're not doctors obviously, but your viewpoint of this, do you think going to the gym or going for walks or doing intensive cardiovascular training, do you see that as being a benefit to this, or do you think there's a more efficient or effective protocol?
Well, and that would depend on how the person's using their body initially. So first of all, if they're conscious diaphragmatic breathers and they're, understanding how to support their fascia, likely they're not going to end up with conditions such as this, because this is what's going to prevent those conditions. So if you're coming into the doctor and you have high blood pressure or cardiovascular disease of some sort, right? And then you go and you put them in the gym, and they haven't opened their breath and understood how to turn on that proper engine, they might actually be doing themselves more harm.
It's more forceful.
It's more forceful, yeah. And if you already have a weakened system and now you're asking it to work harder when it's already weak, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make it stronger.
Right.
It might actually cause it to break.
Right.
And put just more stress in an already stressed body. So that's the lovely part about the fascia decompression, is it's persuasive. It's not forceful.
Yeah.
We are allowing the body to go through its increase in temperature and deal with those adhesions throughout so that we can improve that overall flow. Because again, if we have like an area even in the leg, like let's say you've really collapsed into one hip, so you're blocking that main roadway of flow into the leg, then the flow into that leg is compromised.
Yeah.
And so now your heart, again, is going to be working, but that doesn't mean it's still going to get the flow into that leg. So, the cardiovascular system is all the roadways. It's not just the heart, it's also the arteries and the veins. And we want to make sure that the traffic is able to move with ease. As soon as there's a traffic jam, I mean, gosh, we know this was probably one of the worst summers in Winnipeg for construction.
Oh yeah, big time.
I mean, it's like suddenly it's winter now and it's easy to drive, where in the summer it's ridiculous because every single road has some kind of blockage. So then you're getting this buildup of traffic, and then that buildup of traffic, because now it's slower, it's creating a more toxic environment because you don't have that same ability for the exhaust to leave efficiently, because now you're sitting there and you see it in the winter, especially, of course, when it's cold, and you can really see that exhaust accumulating around the cars when there's a lack of movement. But all cellular activity creates exhaust to some degree, because there's always byproducts of functioning that are going to be waste. So if that waste can't get moved out of the way efficiently, now the cells in that area as well are going to be negatively impacted.
And toxic.
So we want to make sure that the roadways in general are open. And that's why, of course, we address the whole body with fascia. So even talking about things like varicose veins, when you have those roadways, those veins that are impacted, so maybe you only have 1/3 of the roadways working in your leg, you're going to get this ballooning because now you've got 3 times as much traffic trying to go through one roadway. So that's going to compromise the elasticity over time because it's going to constantly be bulging and ballooning. And then before you know it, you don't have enough collagen in that system to create the stability combined with the mobility. And that's the thing about fascia. It's this combination of elastin and collagen as well as other things, but primarily those are those proteins. And the collagen is the building block, the structure. The elastin gives you that ability to, extend and then contract, expand and contract. But if we overexpand, like blowing up a balloon too many times, then eventually you lose the integrity. And that's what happens with that varicose vein. But because we're human and we have these beautiful, beautiful bodies that can restore and balance again, when we release those blocked roadways and we can start allowing that flow to be more balanced within those channels, then we can start to actually also rebuild the vessels.
And I like how you mentioned earlier about if your hip is out of alignment and it's blocking a major roadway, let's say somewhere in your femoral triangle, which is more in that upper leg area. Yeah, like if it's literally blocked and then you try performing high intensity cardio, or you try doing squats, jump squats, lunges, whatever you're trying to accomplish, understanding the fascia more now, you're only going to be tightening the grip more and making that issue worse. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for everyone, but it's something to take into consideration that always focus on your breath and alignment first. Breath, decompress the fascia, and then rebuild your foundations so that you even know how to walk properly. Like we even have free videos on our YouTube channel to showing people how to walk properly because that adds up. Think of how many steps we take a day. Now, sure, we can definitely be more sedentary in this lifestyle now, but that all adds up. And now if you're walking incorrectly and then you're cementing that, and then you decide to do high intensity cardio or you do squats, now you're strengthening and building that further out of alignment, tightening that grip more, which can cause more issues. So really it comes down to decompress and then do intentional, proper strengthening to rebuild your postural foundations and then work from there. A lot of people try to rush this too much. They try to be like, oh, I have high blood pressure. That means I need to do more cardio. Or I have this, I need to do more of that. It's like, relax. Let's just focus on regulating the body on how it should be working. Allow the proper flow of all systems. So similar with inflammation. Now, do you think inflammation is a major cause to these heart issues as well? Or to our circulatory system? Well,
all inflammation is directed blood flow to an area of concern in the body. So whether we've had an injury and we have a gap in a tendon or muscle or ligament or a fracture in a bone, that's all it is. It's directed blood flow because the body's saying, hey, you've got an area over here that's needing some attention. So we're going to direct some additional flow so that we can create a rebuilding. But unless we know what to do with that, then it becomes problematic. So inflammation is the body's genius way of healing and repairing. But as soon as we start to ice it or not address it by adding energy into the system, then we create that stagnancy. And so if I've been icing something and I haven't rebuilt it, the body still recognizes it still needs more. It's not repaired yet. So I'm going to keep sending more. But if you're not utilizing it and it's getting backed up, now you're getting this chronic stagnant inflammation that's just, causing additional problems. But it's not because that the body doesn't know what to do. It's because we're not treating the body properly with how to assist it to heal.
Right.
The body knows what it needs. And just like, funny enough, I mean, the idea that, somebody comes in with a heart issue and it's like, oh, you're 50 pounds overweight, you need to start exercising. Well, you know what? Like, this is a recipe for disaster for a lot of people and a way to make people feel like they're failures. Because if you are 50 pounds overweight and you have a heart issue, chances are you also have pains in your body because you're not able to feed the cells. So now, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. Well, maybe my knee isn't right. Or maybe I have a plantar fasciitis, but I have to walk because my doctor told me I have to walk. So now I'm walking, but I'm limping. So now that limping, that jarring action is impacting the fascia even more negatively, causing more adhesions. We get tighter, and then, it's you can easily get thrown into this negative space based on being told what to do without understanding how to support the breath and how to support proper flow within the body.
Especially being told such a vague statement, exercise more.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Like, what does that even mean? And if you don't have a proper protocol to follow, that's terrifying, because exercise comes in so many different forms.
Yeah.
So if somebody's just saying exercise more, like, yes, that can absolutely be causing more harm than good. You need a good protocol. And of course, nutrition comes into play. Absolutely. Like, that's not even a debate. That's going to affect everybody's health. But from what we've seen in our community, it's amazing how people will not change their nutrition. They won't even change their exercise regime or even start doing more exercise, but these things are starting to improve. Their heart is becoming stronger.
Yeah.
They have proper flow throughout their entire body. They don't have high blood pressure. I'm not going to say anymore. Some people have literally said, like, ever since I started doing block therapy, I don't have high blood pressure, but at least they're on the right track for many of these people so that they do not have the high blood pressure.
Lots of not. Like, there's been lots of people that have, gotten off their meds. And like, that's so exciting. And one of our members, I was blown away by this. She shared this on one of our community groups. She lost 105 pounds in a year, and only from blocking. She didn't change anything else in her lifestyle, but from blocking, she lost 105 pounds. And even more exciting, for people that lose that kind of size, they often have saggy skin. Her skin looked toned, like amazing, because of the integration. Incredible. And I mean, like, those are sort of extreme things. You don't hear often that somebody's lost 105 pounds just from blocking. And I mean, some people, some people first experience change in pain or change in how their systems feel, whether they're anxious or calm. Everybody's body goes through what it needs to, because sometimes we can actually increase in size temporarily as we're pulling the toxins up from the depths of the cells, and then it gets pummeled into the bloodstream, and then we got to release it. But the reality is the body will find its balance. And that's what's most important when we do this work, is the body knows what it needs to be. And ultimately what it needs to have is cells correctly aligned and a diaphragm that's working, an engine that's turned on. And if you have cell alignment and an engine that works, then there's ease of flow. So then your heart doesn't have to work hard, or you don't have a toxic system that, then can't allow your body to heal or you to rest and sleep and all of those things that are necessary for health.
And I'm sure some people, including myself right now, are thinking, well, what about cold exposure and heat exposure? Because this is a really important thing when it comes down to circulation. And a lot of people are doing this, but I can also see pros and cons to doing that as well, because if you are majorly blocked in a certain area, or you cannot control your breath when you're doing, let's say, a cold plunge, or you're in a sauna, then that can potentially cause more harm than good at times as well. Because if I'm about to go on a cold plunge, it takes me about 5 minutes at least just to get in the right mindset and to get my breath really regulated and strong before I jump in. Because then I know that, okay, I'm spacious, I'm open. Then when you get cold, all the blood rushes in. Then when you get out, it starts going, and then all that blood starts to really circulate throughout your entire body. But again, if you have a major blockage in your hip or in your aorta or really anywhere, then I can see that. Again, I don't know this scientifically, if it would or not, but theoretically, I can see how that could potentially cause some harm for some people, not for all people, because I've heard amazing success stories from doing cold and heat exposure. But would you say in this instance, if somebody, let's say a doctor were to say, okay, do you know what, this is becoming an issue with your circulatory system. Yes, there's fats building up. Do you think heat exposure would be a good idea to sit in a sauna for 10, 15 minutes a day?
I think the most important thing is when we have a body that's functioning properly, it knows how to self-regulate. Whether if we're too hot, we sweat. If we're too cold, we shiver. We go through these responses in the body because it knows how to bring us back to that equilibrium of where we should be. but we need a body that understands how to work inwardly in order to have the best outcome of these unconscious actions or reactions to stimuli. So, I mean, again, I always say, like, try things and see how you feel, because for some person that sauna might be one of the best things, and that cold plunge might be one of the best things, but for somebody else it might not be.
Yeah.
So I'm all for trying things. And I do also want to share, like, I have the greatest respect for the medical world. And what I think that has happened, because I mean, how they treated both my parents or grandparents when they were coming to the end, it was such a blessing, and they were given such beautiful care. If somebody's in a car accident, you go to the hospital and they know how to put you back together. Like, for what they do, they are phenomenal at doing it. Where I think things get awry is that we as humans think that, we can live whatever lifestyle we do, and then we get to a point where we're really unhealthy, and then we go to the doctor and we think that the doctor should be able to fix us and help us. But the reality is it's not the doctor's job to make us healthy. It's our job. No one can make us breathe. We are the only ones that can choose to be conscious breathers. So if we look after our health from the prevention perspective and use the medical world when necessary, then there'd be this lovely balance. But we've put way too much onus on the medical profession to make us healthy or keep us healthy or whatever it is, when it's not their job to do that.
That's such a powerful statement. Like, health is dependent on each individual. You have to take initiative of your own health. And that's something that we teach and we preach. We're not going to give you all of the protocols to become healthy. We're going to give you what we know the best, which is fascia decompression. We will share our perspective on nutrition, what's worked for us, but there's also, you and I have very different diets. And that's great. And that's really good that you were able to take initiative of yourself to see what is the proper food for my system. So for example, you don't eat meat. You're not a vegan, but you're a vegetarian. And I tried going meatless. So I tried being a vegetarian, and I did, to be honest, I felt really good in certain instances, but other areas I felt a lack of. So finding that balance was great for me. So similar with cold exposure, heat exposure, test it out. I love how you said that. See what you think. I've tested it out and I love it. There's a lot of studies done that, yes, it definitely helps and can improve your health in general. But yeah, really when it comes down to proper circulation of your body, you have to think of the physical blocks, the physical roadblocks in your body. And that's the fascia that is going to be manipulating how our systems work, how they articulate the flow of our systems, so that we can release and just bring everything back to how it should be. That should be everybody's number one goal. And hey, if you can do that in conjunction with eliminating unhealthy foods for your body type, I think we can all agree that there's foods out there that aren't good for anybody, but there's also foods that are great for me that aren't that great for you, and vice versa. So yeah, it really comes down to, if somebody is in this scenario right now where they're like, okay, I need to start improving my health in general, start there.
Start with the breath.
Start with the breath.
And that's the nice thing too, because if I am this person who is overweight with arthritic knees and I know I have to get my circulation pumping, the most efficient way to do it is to get your breath going. We don't consider this muscle as being a muscle because we don't see it. You don't see the quad. I mean, you see the quad, you see that, like, you see these things and you're like, okay, I can actively go to the gym, I can do things, and I can actually see the changes. You can see the changes when you work the diaphragm, but you don't recognize that those changes are a result of working the diaphragm. And this muscle, I mean, we know when we're take 10 full breaths properly, it's an exercise. So you can be lying on your back and you can exercise and you can turn on that engine and you can make so many changes for your body without having to impact a joint that might be unstable or degenerated, causing you more issues. And then you can start repairing those areas to get to the point where you can go to that next level where now I can start to add different kinds of movement in. So many people all frequently ask in our community, should I continue going to the gym while I'm blocking? And I mean, I always say, like, give yourself a little break just to give yourself a reset, then go back. Because we don't want you not doing what you love to do, but also, do it properly. So, I mean, I love your alignment training stuff because it teaches you how to do that stuff from a place of correct alignment, as opposed to just willy-nilly, I'm going to go and try to lift as much as I can, and then you're winging your body all over the place and you're creating density and asymmetry. And
that's a major misconception for people when they're going to the gym. They think that just doing any kind of movements or doing any machine work, like if you go to a big commercial gym, let's say like Good Life Fitness, and you're just following their circuit of doing exercises, you don't know how to align your body properly. You don't know how to breathe through the movements properly. You don't know how to use your breath as your guide. And that's why it's so cool how you and I are a team on this. You share a lot of the fascia decompression. Like, you are the fascia master guru with this. Again, I say this in one of the first episodes, I'm more of the baby fascia master, but it's important because now I get to bring in the perspective of how to properly train your foundations from the most basic foundation. Because doing a plank, doing a squat, even when we were at Sparkling Hill and we did our amazing 3-day retreat. So that was the combination of a ton of blocking, then we did foundation building, a ton of blocking, then foundation building. But if I were to say for the first exercise, hey, everybody, let's stand up and let's do 20 squats together, that's going to be chaos. That was the last exercise that I shared on the last day on how to properly do a squat, because everything builds up. How to strengthen your feet, how to brace your core and strengthen that, how to strengthen your pelvic alignment, how to strengthen your knees, where they should be in relation to your knees and or with your feet and your hips, everything up the chain. So that's what's so important to do. And something that we can agree on is, well, we agree on a lot of things, obviously, majority of things. We want everybody to do everything that they want to do. So even if it can be, I'll use the word detrimental to your health right now in the state that you're in right now, it doesn't mean that you can never go back to doing that. It's just make sure that we can unwind your body, unlock your body, and then rebuild it from the proper foundations so that you can integrate what you've learned and what your cells have learned from this new alignment to do into your practice, into your hobby. If that's tennis, if that's golf, if that's hockey, if that is going for walks, if that's swimming, whatever it is. Because even swimming, it's hilarious. I was talking to my brother the other day, and both my brother and I have had shoulder issues and some neck issues. And I'm not blaming anything on hereditary, but it's because we popped our shoulders out a ton of times when we were younger by doing sports and being idiots the majority of the time. But kinking the neck, my brother was telling me that he went swimming in August and he kinked his neck one time just from swimming. And you'd think that'd be the last place you would do it. But it's those little unconscious things where if you're not doing a breaststroke properly, then that can be building you more out of alignment.
Yeah.
So it's taking everything in that you learn from our system, from the block therapy system to the foundation building, and integrating that into literally everything that you do.
Because, you can build the most perfect structure in the world, and you can place it on a piece of land where a corner of it has some quicksand, and that perfect structure is no longer perfect. No, now you've just, you've wrecked everything because you didn't start from that understanding of what's the best foundation to build the structure on.
And that's what people want to do. They always see the result and they try to shortcut to get to the result. And I'm guilty of that too. That was me when I was younger.
Well, me when I was younger, I used to starve myself. I mean, I wanted to lose weight, and it's like, you know what? I've got an event in a week, so I'm not going to eat for 7 days. Like, hello, that's smart. But I mean, that's like, it's the mindset, especially when we're young, because we want that convenience of things to happen fast.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, those are the things that are going to bite you in the ass a little later down the line.
Yeah.
So and that's why, I'm so grateful that you at the age of 18, awakened to this world, because you are such a representative at the age of 28 only now, how much wisdom your body has and how you can now help others because you started young. And I mean, starting at any age is amazing. I mean, we've got a gentleman 102 years old in our membership. It's fascinating,
Shout out to him.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Incredible. So it's beautiful to see, but especially with the youth today, because again, they're starting from a different foundation than my generation. So, I mean, I know that a lot of what you're trying to do is trying to get these younger people into this system so that they don't have to start when they're already in such a place of dis-ease. Like start when you're young and learn these, because all we're doing is teaching you ultimately how your body is supposed to be driven. We're not trying to, do some weird woo-woo stuff. Like we are born to breathe with the diaphragm, and we are so locked away from that. We are born to align our body partly with the tongue. One of the things that makes me crazy, and I mean, it's lovely to have family dinners or go out socially and to have a meal while you're talking, but the tongue is a muscle that can talk and it can chew, and it can't do both at the same time. So like, I'm so much about like, we should really just be eating and then we should be socializing, because now we're screwing up our system. It's like, we just don't recognize how to really use this beautiful container that we have for our soul in a great way. And as a result, sometimes for many people, life can be really miserable, because when you're in chronic constant pain or you're struggling with anxiety, I mean, I've been in both of those places, and it's awful. Where when you actually wake up and you feel alive and healthy and you're ready to take on the day and use your creative gifts for the world, like then it's exciting.
100%.
And that's what we need, is we need people to start to love their bodies, love their life. But to love your body, you need to understand how it works so that you can ease or flow with ease. And then there's grace.
And another really important thing is like, yes, I'm definitely focusing or trying to get a younger demographic in, because it's, to me, because I've been in it for like 10 years now, it's like, why wouldn't everybody do this?
Yeah.
But no matter what state you're at right now, even if you are 100 pounds, 200 pounds overweight, you have chronic pain, whatever issue you have, there's always ways to unwind yourself and to get back to how your body should be regulated. And again, over and over, I do so much research. You do so much research. We see what other people are doing out there, and there's a lot of absolutely phenomenal things that people are doing. But from my best understanding is you got to start here. You got to start with the breath and releasing. Drop the ego a bit. It's okay if you lose a little bit of muscle, or if you gain a little or a few more pounds of fat. Like if it's gonna, in the long run, like you have to look at this in the long run.
Yeah, you do.
So slow down, make sure your body's healthy, and then tune into your body with what I should be eating. Should I be doing other types of modalities or therapies to help complement this process? Sure, see what ones you like and run with it. But also another big piece, because this is what's really funny. So this is actually really funny. There's the cognitive component to it as well. And the reason why I'm laughing, because yes, anxiety plays a role in like high blood pressure and these issues as well. But I was getting my blood pressure done. And this is when I was going through my own, I'm going to call it a healing crisis or a healing opportunity, that I was getting those skin rashes and whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to my herbalist and see what she sees. But they had to do my blood test or my blood pressure. And I had something called the white coat syndrome. So when you get, as soon as somebody comes in with like a white coat and they're taking your blood pressure, all of a sudden this starts happening. And I'm just like, it's like, oh, you're 150 over 112 or whatever it was. And I'm just like, is that good? They're like, no. They're like, you're 26. So do you do that? I'm like, I feel like I'm really healthy. And so we did like 3 tests of it, and no bueno, not good.
Not good.
But then I took one home, I did it, and I was like 108 over whatever. And it's just like, oh, okay, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
But the point of this is the anxiety component, the cognitive component also plays a role as well. But connecting to your breath, decompressing your belly, your fascia will help bring you into more of a relaxed state. The mind isn't everything. The body and the mind are so connected. So if we can not just always start with the brain, I'm going to meditate and do that. If you can start with the body, because we are physical beings, and decompress, connect to the breath, that's already going to change the frequency of your brain pattern and the brain waves. Like we talk about this all the time, the diaphragmatic breath, the frequency that has and how that translates to the brain compared to an anxious breather through the muscles in the upper chest, how that's more chaotic. So if that's you, because that's also me, we have to be able to breathe, calm down, and then that's going to already start creating improvements. And then when you do your blood pressure tests in the future, you'll notice a massive change.
And that's the thing. I mean, we can be in a very stressful situation and we can have a calm inner space, or we can be in a really calm situation and have a really stressful inner space. So to be able to regulate that and understand, and I mean, you know, after my mom was given that diagnosis, I created that grief support class, which is one of the classes we have in our membership, because I was blown away. For as much as I'm aware of how to breathe, I was blown away how my body got pulled down so forcefully, almost, with that feeling of grief, which was why I created that class as a bit of a different approach to really target this area and open things up. But that's just it. We can't control everything, but we can control a lot more than we recognize that we can. And that's what's really important, because it's how we respond to life's moments that will determine what our outcomes are. And there's a lot we can't control, but we can control if we are conscious breathers or not. But what's even more exciting with fascia decompression is you can learn to breathe the way we're supposed to breathe, but if you're locked away, you're still locked away. So to decompress those ribs and to bring that whole muscle plate into action, that's the game changer. And that's why we see the beautiful responses that we have in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, very cool. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
No, I think that really wraps it up. I mean, inevitably we always end up talking kind of about the whole body whenever we target on one area, because you can't not.
I think that's the point.
It is the point.
That is the point.
We can never just look at one thing and say, okay, how do you make your heart healthy? It takes a village. It takes the village of all your cells to be healthy and to be complete within yourself. So, of course, most importantly, we want to make sure that the heart is healthy, and that comes with the breath.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that right there is the key takeaway. Start with the breath. Start decompressing your entire body if you can. If you're wanting to go back to the gym and doing any sort of resistance training or going back to your sport, make sure that you are doing this type of stuff first. And for those who are watching or listening, our YouTube channel shares a lot of this. So if you just want to start with that belly position, we teach you how to do this with a rolled up towel.
Yeah.
And you can start with that belly position. Do that every single day for 3 to 5 minutes. After a week, notice the changes. You are going to be a bit different already. And now start exploring different areas in your body. We have different positions we showcase on our YouTube channel. Our sampler program, it's like a $9 program. It teaches you how to use a rolled up towel, and there's some corrective exercises in there.
Yeah.
That's also a phenomenal start. Doing that is better than nothing by a landslide. That's really going to start kickstarting your body in the right direction.
And what is really neat to see too is within the first class or two, people already feel it.
Yeah.
So that's the nice thing. It's not like taking something and you've got to wait for months before you get enough of the medicine in your body before you can actually experience changes. Like, you feel it immediately.
Yeah.
And that's the takeaway. We need that to say, okay, I'm going to keep committing to this. And if you keep doing it, the commitment keeps showing you how much more open and spacious your body is now, how much healthier you can be.
And your body has the innate ability to heal. Everything that you need, we all need to heal is already stored within us. We just need to unlock it and activate it.
Yeah.
And that's by just unlocking the system so that the proper flow works. If you're taking in the correct nutrients for you, vitamins, minerals, then it's the same thing with supplementation. You can be taking all these supplements, and yes, I do take a fair share of supplements, but if your system's closed and locked, it's going to be hard to deliver those to your cells efficiently.
Yeah.
It all comes down to the same thing. So even if you are on a diet or a nutritional kick, we could call it, you're only going to get more of a benefit when your system's open, when your breath is open, when there's more oxygen in your blood. And that's the number one essential nutrient our body requires.
Of course, every single ATP mitochondria in each and every cell, oxygen's the fuel.
Exactly.
That's why the diaphragm's the engine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to end right there.
Yeah.
That was a cool conversation.
Yeah.
And that went by quick.
I know. I love having these. They're fun.
I know. That felt like a 10-minute conversation.
Maybe it was. Time warp.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so that's everything for this episode. Again, if you're new to block therapy or you've heard of us and you haven't started it yet, Again, check out our YouTube channel. You can check out my YouTube channel as well, Quinn Castellane. I show more of the foundation building stuff. But just to get started with the breath, it's on the Block Therapy YouTube channel, or visit blocktherapy.com. If you want to reach out and be part of our supportive community on Facebook, go to Block Therapy Community in the search bar, and you just have to request access and you'll be in, and then you can start asking questions, and that's a perfect start. So that wraps it up. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you, Deanna, for the awesome discussion. Like always, we'll be on next week, and we'll see you then.
Bye, everyone.